Good morning, good afternoon, or maybe good evening to some of you. Welcome to this webinar. Today's topic is digestibility and beyond. It's part of a series that we are doing about the IntelliBond abilities. This is the second one. We had one last month and we have a few more to come. We will show that in a while. Just before we get started, I am your host. I am Chantal van Lin. I'm the marketing content specialist for Nutritional Solutions. I want to raise a few things. More than happy to answer all the questions that you have. And you can do that via the panel that you see here in the GoToWebinar tool. Just type in your questions here. We will see them come in and we will address them accordingly during the webinar. But we also have a Q&A session after the presentations. Webinars will be recorded and the recordings will be available upon request afterwards, and the same goes for handouts. A small disclaimer before we get started. Please note that all product names and claims mentioned in this webinar are very generic and can differ from your local situation. So that means that please keep this in mind and contact your local sales or trial representative to discuss your needs and options. Looking at what we're describing today. So with no further ado, I'm just going to give the floor to our presenters that are David Brito and Pablo Gomez. They are going to talk you through the wonderful world of the IntelliBond abilities digestibility part as such. You will see here the scheme that we have set up for the coming years. So be more than welcome to join as well in July. The next one on palatability. So, but with no further ado, I'm going to give the floor to David and Pablo.
Thanks, Chantal, for the introduction to bring. So, hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for some. I see a lot of friends from, let's say, from the America side, not just North, but also Central and South America. Good friends from Brazil, good friends from the US. You guys are more than welcome to join. I appreciate all this. I hope you can have this time together here to put some knowledge and also discussion and questions. So, Pablo, I want to invite you to introduce yourself, and then I go ahead and we can start the webinar.
Thank you, David. It is a pleasure to be there with you and with all of you, the audience. I can recognize some people over there. My name is Pablo Gomez. I've been working in trial nutrition since 2014. I'm a ruminant product manager in the company, and I work closely to Celco feed additive department and guys. And for me, it is a pleasure to be there to present some local experience in Spain, and I hope everyone can appreciate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pablo. It's a pleasure to also have you hosting this webinar together. So my name is, for those who doesn't know me, my name is David Brito. I'm a part of the for the global feed additives team for trial nutrition. I'm located nowadays in Netherlands, and I'm responsible for the trace minerals program in the European, Mid East, and African countries. And as Chantal has mentioned, the plan here is to go more about the impact of the trace mineral source on digestibility, in special fiber digestibility in ruminant diets. And I'm glad to have Pablo with us. Pablo is part of the trial nutrition team in Spain, as he mentioned, with a lot of experience also with trace minerals and ruminants. So it will be very nice to have Pablo also sharing some of his experience when working with the IntelliBond and with dairy cows in Spain. So to start here, I'm gonna move my slide. So our agenda, we're gonna have a fast overlook on trace minerals and digestibility. Then we go to some research update. Pablo will also bring some practical application. Then we can have our overall key takeaways. So trace mineral. For those who are following, gonna be familiar, and also, of course, those who are part of the trial nutrition or Celco or micronutrients has seen this slide before. But the idea here is just to highlight we are supplementing or offering trace mineral sources to animals, in special dairy and cattle, for many years, over than 1 century. There's a reason for that, and the reason is because to really keeping going, all the performance and growing with the advantage of the new genetics, the amount of trace mineral available in the basal ingredients were not enough. And then we start to supplement what was available back in the beginning, which was oxides. And then, of course, the industry started to be improving the quality of the trace mineral source, and that's where we are today. So basically, from the last 100 years, those are the most important development of trace mineral source, from oxides to sulfates, and then organic trace minerals, when we were able to offer a more stable and also more bioavailable source of trace mineral, until the 90s with the development of the hydroxide, which were more able also to go a step ahead by now working with a complete replacement of the inorganic source, such as sulfate oxide, to offer a very stable, more homogeneity, and more bioavailable source of trace mineral. So in other words, hydroxychloride trace minerals are the latest, most modern technology for trace mineral source available in the market today, since the 90s. And where are the advantages of this? Just briefly, I just want to show the structure to make sure it's clear in the picture for everybody. When it comes to talk about sulfate, we talk about ionic bond. So the metal is connected to a ligand by a very weak bond. So weak bond, they are less stable, they are more reactive, which also can bring benefits in cost, but also bad effects or negative effects when it comes to solubility, stability, and reactivity. Then in the 70s, as I mentioned, the organic trace mineral started to be developed and to replace also part of what we call the inorganic trace mineral source. The difference, as you can see, organic trace mineral offer a covalent bond to where the ligand is connected or linked to the metal. In this case, a stronger bond. But the organic, which improve a lot the homogeneity and also increase the stability, and also the bioavailability. But there is also another side of the coin, which it is by using amino acids, they are big molecule, or by using proteinates or peptides or polysaccharides, they are big molecules. So in other words, the concentration of the metal is reducing. So generally, you're going to see organic trace mineral range from 10 to 20% of the metal concentration. And by using a very unique or important nutrient such as amino acid or protein, we also have an increase of price. So you never were able to move ahead for 100% of replacement based on the return on investment to use a trace mineral source such like this. So in that reason, it's very common to see in dairy ratios or even some beef diets, inorganic trace mineral combined with organic in a range from 20–30% in average. But with the hydroxide, as you can see, the difference is simple. It's still covalent bond, which is strong, which gives much more stability and reactivity, but you don't have the organic part. So in other words, the concentration is much higher, from 44–56%. And also the cost is much more cost effective because you also don't have the organic part, which also increment the cost of the molecule. So this is basically the picture about the hydroxychloride we're talking here. So different types of molecules, all that has advantages. And of course, with the hydroxide, we were able to give a step ahead in terms of quality or stability and reactivity of the formulation. Just it's kind of a delay a little bit. So as you can see in my picture, how the nutrient, how nutritional source affects nutrient digestibility, that's very simple. I have a comparison here between IntelliBond C and copper sulfate. As you can see in water, after 30 minutes, you have copper sulfate completely soluble and also dissociate copper, so you have free metals. The same thing you don't find with the IntelliBond C right here in the picture, because in that pH, you don't have the release of the metal. IntelliBond is very stable in pH above 4.0. So, and by having these free metals is where we start to affect the nutrient digestibility. That's what's about this seminar today. Just to mention right here, this dissociation, this release of the metal, we start with moisture. We know here for a picture, comparing IntelliBond zinc copper sulfate and also IntelliBond Z and zinc sulfate, you see the moisture is already reacting, causing clumping here. So we have like some clumping problems, which is already releasing the metal to really react with many with other metals or other part of the or other nutrients or other antagonists in the formula, in the feed, or in the mineral premix, or in the fire mineral, but also free metal that can interact with the bugs in the rumen and then can cause some damage for digestibility of some nutrients, in this case, special fiber. And that's what we're going to show. And you know that very well because for years, we've been using copper sulfate, for example, or zinc sulfate to treat disease. In case of the hospital, you're always going to find when you have some problems with some of these super bacteria, about resistant bacteria, when they don't find an antibiotic solution, copper sulfate or zinc sulfate become a special weapon to fight those in those places. But in a daily basis in a farm, we see this type of thing, like a cow walking through a water bath treatment to the foot, to the feet. Why? Because we want to control the pathogens that is related to the digital dermatitis. Then you put a solution of copper or zinc sulfate from 2 to 5% to release out the metal to kill the bugs. So that's what you do. And why, if you do that to treat the bugs to the cow, why are you offering the diets? And that was the question that was made long ago to start to develop all the trials and to try to develop all this sequence of ideas that we're going to show here today. Because even a small amount is clear now that's causing some damage in the fiber digestibility. And this can affect the result and also and can affect cost and results of your diet formulation and also the performance of the animals later on. So, key message, more weak bonds is equal more solubility, which means more reactivity, means more oxidation, more antagonists, less stability. As I presented in the last seminar 2 months ago, myself and Shanna, our colleague also from Asia, less absorption, so you have less available metal to be absorbed. So, but also right here, we're going to show that by having free metal in the room, you also affect digestibility of fiber, and both things together are going to result in less performance or less growth or less health. Because if you need the metal for some reason, it's not there, but also the amount of energy that you are perhaps not producing by affect the population of bacteria that digest cellulose can also be in somehow affecting your performance later on. So I'm going to give the word for Pablo to go through the digestibility now.
Thank you, David. I think I already have the control. Okay. Well, we move to another block, an overlook digestibility is another perspective, just to be more focused on digestibility. It is the goal for this webinar, this presentation. And I know most of you know very well the differences between carbohydrates, type of carbohydrates. But I think it is necessary to talk about, because sometimes we in discussions with mates or colleagues or even farmers, we talk about carbohydrate when we want to say starch or non-structural carbohydrates, because if you see these pictures, both of them are carbohydrates, as you know perfectly, but on the right side, always we name fiber or even NDF, but when we try to do a ration or a formula, but with farmers or colleagues, all the time we are talking about fiber. But at the end, we are talking about carbohydrate in the both circumstances. And what are the main differences between non-structural carbohydrates and structural carbohydrates? You can see the structure of both of them on the top. The main differences between each other are the all monomers in the case of non-structural carbohydrates are placed in the same location, in the same orientation. But on the other hand, in the case of structural carbohydrates, the monomers is upside down with respect to its neighbors, as you see in the presentation. Starch is the natural glucose non-structural carbohydrate of plants, and normally we use that in the grains through maize, barley, wheat, oat, or whatever we use depending on the area, depending on the country, and commonly simplify to carbohydrates. In the case of structural carbohydrates, it is the part of the cell wall in the plants. So it is the reason to name structural, but commonly we simplify with the name fiber. In applied, as you see in the nutritional discussion with many people day by day. If you look at fiber, we can differentiate two different different composition depending on where is placed in the cell. So we can have cell contents as proteins, sugars, fat, starch, pectins in a very variable content, but also we have in the cell wall composition in a very stable, depending on the forage or silage which we are talking. We can find cellulose, lignin, and hemicellulose, and normally we use ADF or NDF. NDF together, cellulose, lignin, and hemicellulose in our software to do ratio. So that is very important to try to determine who is charged of ferment or degrade every type of carbohydrate. Because in the case of the ruminants, ruminants can produce amylase like mammals to ferment or to digest starch, but also can produce cellulose. Not the cow, but yeah, it is the microbes in the rumen. Okay, so it is the main difference between other animals, and in the case of cows and dairy cows or beef cattle, microbe can synthesize this enzyme, this both enzyme. Well, if we look at the rumen and the product after the fermentation, after the degradation, we need to talk about volatile fatty acid. It is crucial to take into consideration when we talk about digestibility, because volatile fatty acid is one of the main energy source for ruminants and producing in the rumen. Acetate and butyrate production is favored by the degradation of NDF, pectins, and sugars, and also high levels of butyrate are found also in some forages or silages and are ingested in the TMR. Okay, so propionate production, for example, is favored by the degradation of sugars, starch, and soluble carbohydrates. And in the case of lactic acid, it is also very important, mainly when we use an important amount of concentrate or grains, is favored by the degradation of sugars and starches. And in the case of acetate and butyrate, they provide a carbon source for fatty acids, for example, adipose or mammary gland. In the case of butyrate and adipose and mammary gland in the acetate, and propionate, it is a precursor of glucose in the liver. But all of them they are one of the most important energy sources for ruminants. If we take into account all the sources which provide energy in the total amount, you can see on the corner the importance of volatile fatty acid. It is a very nice support for ruminants, and they can provide at least with the 70% of the total energy supply for ruminants, and instead of microbial protein, for example, or digestible and fermented feed with the 30% left rest. You can see the first trial which we want to show you. It was a trial designed by or coordinated by Jerry Spears in North Carolina State University, and was the master thesis of Schaffer. This trial was implemented in 120 Angus and Angus cross steers with around 250 kilograms of body weight, and they did 5 different groups, including a control group. These groups use 30 ppm or 90 ppm of zinc in 2 different sources, sulfate and IntelliBond zinc, with a different amount of animals in each barn or in each pen. In the case of this trial, the treatment was applied in the growing phase, okay, and rumen fluid was collected 2 hours after feeding, and they were fed once per day. If you see the graphic, there are some interesting figures, but I think the most interesting figures are resulted after consume 90 ppm of zinc sulfate compared to 19 ppm of IntelliBond zinc, and also with the control. It is very important because volatile fatty acids are a source of energy for cattle and are produced by rumen microbes as they ferment feeds in the rumen. Because supplemental zinc is not required for rumen microbes, it is required by cows, but not for the rumen microbes function. The control diet in the left, I think, provides a good baseline of what is the volatile fatty acids production under these circumstances. So we can compare what is the optimal in the case of the total volatile fatty acids, and compare how using IntelliBond zinc don't avoid the volatile fatty acid production. So it is very interesting trial. So in summary, esters supplemented with 90 ppm of zinc sulfate have decreased total rumen volatile fatty acids compared to esters supplemented with IntelliBond zinc with the same amount. Thank you. The floor is yours, David.
Thank you, Pablo. So everyone, so using the message from Pablo, as you see in the last slide, so something happened, like after a inclusion level of zinc, you have a difference in the amount of VFA produced. Consider the source. So in the hydroxychloride IntelliBond zinc was keeping the same volatile fatty acid production than the control one, as much as the zinc from the sulfate treatment was reduced. So this came to make a lot of questions. So what's going on? Why? So we know free metals can cause damage to bacteria, and now you're observing some changes in the production of VFA. Something is going on. So, and then the research I'm going to show you is I picked few of the research that have been done from the last 10, 12 years with trout nutrition and some other in partnership with important and very well recognized university and research center around the world to show what is the message that you have behind on this. So the first one I want to show is so this is very traditional work back in the 60s and the 70s. And then we went back over there to check. So let's see what you know about copper and zinc and cellulose digestion. So there is our colleagues from University of Florida, there is a PhD thesis from Sala, but also a publication from other colleagues from the Oregon State University back in the 70s, showing a picture to us that perhaps something is going on. And traditionally, what this picture shows for the both situation, of course, one, the methodologies they are using washed rumen microbes, and they're not, and another one they are using rumen fluid. But both picture here you can see in the graph you have the percentage of the rate of cellulose digestion and also the increased amount of trace minimum. And as much as we increase the amount of trace minimum in case of the copper and zinc, you see there is a reduction of the cellulose digestion. Even washed rumen microbes, but also in the rumen fluid. I just want to make a picture, one discussion, very communication here in the rumen fluid, which can bring some ideas to us, because you see, like with 20 ppm copper, you have a reduction cellulose digestion from 80 to almost 10. And with 80 ppm zinc, you have a reduction from 80 to close to below 10. So in other words, 20 ppm copper, 80 ppm zinc, those are really average feeding levels that you see in a regular diet for dairy and also many for beef. So you're not working far away with levels that can really cause something to reduce the ability to digest cellulose, which is a fiber, which is a carbohydrate that we want energy from. So that could answer part of what you see in the VFA trial done in North Carolina state that Pablo just showed. But of course, it's back in the years, this is in vitro, and then we start to do, as trial nutrition and micronutrients, many research on this scenario to understand better and better what's going on. So later on, this is a very nice trial done in partnership with North Carolina and also Colorado State University with Dr. Jerry Spear and also Dr. Terry Engel. So, and was published in the Journal of Animal Science about 2 years ago. So in this trial, you can see the idea was here, okay, let's use some animals. We're gonna provide a bolus of trace minerals from or copper, zinc, and manganese, or from IntelliBond, hydroxychlorides, or from sulfates, and see what's happened in the rumen in terms of, in terms of solubility of the trace mineral source. So in this case, that's what's happened. We provide a bolus with 20 ppm copper, 6 ppm zinc, and 40 ppm manganese. The animals receive the bolus, and every 2 hours after receive, samples were collected, centrifugated, and then the soluble part was analyzed. So what you can see right here in terms of response, as you can see, in the time 0 is when they receive the bolus, and then after 2 hours, every 2 hours after, you see what's happened with the amount of rumen soluble copper and also zinc from both sources. If you can see the graph here, immediately in the first 2 hours after, you see a sharp increase of rumen soluble copper as well as zinc for at least from 0 to 12, 14 hours after fermentation. In other words, all this copper that shows up soluble are free copper or free zinc, dissociate from the sulfate molecule that are free and very free to react with bacteria or even other antagonists. So you don't see the same thing happen when it comes to the IntelliBond. As I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, IntelliBond molecule is very stable in pH above 4.0. So in other words, by using a very soluble source such as sulfate, we are releasing the animal, by eating that, they are having a very big release of copper and zinc in the rumen. And these perhaps are already causing things. So, and can connect to the message where we want to bring and also connect it. So later on, not later on, but in another trial right here, I want to show also this done with Dr. Bill Wise, the Ohio State University, using 18 multiple hosting cows in a split plot design. So cows were assigned to a byproduct or to a forage diet, 2 different types of diets, receiving 1 or 2 mineral sequences from sulfate to IntelliBond and from IntelliBond to sulfate in a rate of trace mineral about 10 ppm copper, 35 ppm zinc, and 33 ppm manganese. As you can see, generally you can find even higher supplemental range than this. So just to show you the picture here, what's happened in those animals in terms of digestibility of fiber when it comes to the supplementation of trace mineral source in 2 different types of diets. So animals received by 16 days no supplemental, and then they went to the mineral supplementation. And of course, cows after 8 days, they were moved to a metabolic stall, and total fecal urine collection happened to make sure we could evaluate the information. So what was the result? So this, as I just to mention, this information is also published in the Journal of the Dairy Science back in 2017. There is a difference in NADF digestibility when you compare trace mineral source. In other words, IntelliBond is 2.2 extra points, increased the NADF digestibility by 2.2 points. And also, you see difference right here, as you can see when it comes to 35% forage in 35% forage in a byproduct diet, or in a 64% forage in what we call the forage diet, difference as well. But doesn't matter the source, we're gonna see a benefit in the NADF digestibility by replacing sulfate for IntelliBond. So, and as Pablo mentioned in part of this presentation, the importance of the digestion of the fiber, the importance of the breakdown of the fiber, because all the volatile fatty acids, all this energy available, they're going to be used to the animal for many functions, including performance or growth or milk production. So this is one trial. Of course, we don't have time to go to many trials here, but I can bring something very nice, which we just recently sent this meta-analysis for a meeting right here in Germany for the Bavarian Working Group on Animal Nutrition, which in partnership with Dr. Barry Bradford in Michigan State University, we could summarize everything in an analytical way to see what we can expect in terms of the improvement of NADF digestibility without trial that has been done, including IntelliBond versus sulfate. And as you can see here, that's very interesting that generally, in average, you see from 2 to 4 points of improvement on NADF digestibility when it comes to the completed replacement of the sulfate by IntelliBond. In average, those diets you can see 12 ppm copper, 56 ppm zinc, or 36 ppm manganese. So there is a clear benefit when you summarize all trials together. And of course, many new trials are coming. That's happened not even for dairy, but also for beef diet. So, in other words, sulfate by being very soluble molecule is causing a damage in the bacterial population in the rumen, which is really affecting the digestibility of fiber. So before you start to think about use any other technology when you're formulating our diet or formulating our feed, what here is a very nice information to support all of us to see if I'm comfortable with the trace mineral source I'm using. Because before the hydroxychloride came, we were not clear about that. Even if you think, oh, perhaps there's some damage, perhaps there's a problem, but here it's clear that you are losing opportunity. And there's something else. Generally, when you are looking to use additives or other technology, we are assuming to have some improvement of gain that from 1, 2, or 3 liters of milk. Right here, I'm just telling you that it's the wrong decision, the trace mineral source are already disappeared for 1 liter of milk of a cow. That's it, which sorry, I just muted myself. So according to, for those who are very familiar with the NADF digestibility information, the total tract NADF-D, so about 20 years ago, very traditional publication from our colleagues from Michigan State University, Dr. Oba and Dr. Mike Allen, they indicated for each 1 point of NADF-D, up or down, is equivalent about 250 grams of 4% fat correct milk. I just show here in the meta-analysis that you talk about from 2 to 4. You're talking easily here about 500 grams to 1 kilogram of milk that perhaps is disappearing, or you are not you are losing just because of the decision of the trace mineral source. And this milk, of course, can appear when it comes to lactating dairy cows in the beginning of the lactation or in the peak of lactation, but perhaps for growing animals or cows after the peak, we can see that as an extra body condition score, or even additional growth. But also in the beef animals, there could be extra energy that can support the animals to grow faster or improve the average daily gain. And that's what I'm going to show you now based on this information, the digestibility of the NDF. So it's clear to us that sulfates are doing more bad than good to diets in the animals. We are losing opportunity here. And I'm just showing you the piece of the NDF of the digestibility of fiber. 2 months ago, I show about bioavailability, and I'm going to show more things about palatability in 2 months. So there's many ways to see. I'm just showing here in the room environment, not talk about absorption. There is a loss here. We are losing money or opportunities to do better in terms of diet, just because we are taking the wrong decision. I know we are used to sulfate for more than 100 years, but right now we have a new information to improve the assertivity or how much you can be sharp in the decision you're going to make when you use a trace mineral source. For many years, you know the benefit to use organic, but you never could replace 100% because of cost. And now we have this opportunity, and also have information to support this opportunity. So the return investment by this half or 100 or 1 kilogram of milk is very high. And just to keep that in mind when it comes to taking this decision. Okay. So David, what else I can expect? So I think that's a good point. So okay, it's clear since that IntelliBond do better for digestibility of NDF. So what I can expect in real life, and that's where you go to the presentation now. I'm going to show some research, and Pablo going to show some real case with customers in Spain. So very nice trial done from our colleagues from the R&D team from Trial Nutrition right here in our dairy research facility in Netherlands. Okay, this trial was just recently published back last year in October in the Journal of the Dairy Science. So 52 Holstein Friesian cows, all housed in a freestall barn in a 4x4 Latin square design. They receive a supplemental trace mineral source of 15, 40, and 20 ppm copper, zinc, and manganese. So 4 treatments, 100% an organic trace mineral source, another 100% IntelliBond or hydroxychloride trace mineral source. Then you have the combination of an organic with 30% organic trace mineral and hydroxychloride 70%, 30% organic trace mineral. So how was the result of this trial? Just want to show you in this trial, we could see when it comes to trace mineral source, there is an improvement of milk yield about 1.2 kilos of milk. So this advantage to work with a more stable trace mineral source that react less with the rumen and also offer the opportunity to be more metal to be absorbed, we increase milk, and you could see in those cows. Beside that, we could also see an increase on fat content by considering the digestibility of fiber. And this energy, why not also have more fat? That's what's happening. But clearly you can see by source, the hydrox trace mineral improved by improved from about 0.8 points in the digestibility of NDF. So a lot gain in terms to use all this extra digestibility of this carbohydrate energy to be here summarizing, of course, in milk. But this energy is also used for other tissues, for other purposes. But here, that's what we could see. So it's possible to see milk, yes, and you have this. This is one of the trials that we have seen. And what else? Just recently, and that this publication is in preparation, but there is an abstract that was just recently in the American Society of Animal Science last year that was presented. That was developed by our research validation team in Brazil in partnership with São Paulo State University, some colleagues over there. So the picture is very clear. You can see this is the Brazil during winter. There's no snow, but there is a dry season. So when the dry season comes, the amount of forage goes down and also the quality goes very low. So low for quality forage, low NDF digestibility. So generally the animals or lose weight or they have very low gain. So what's the idea behind here? The idea is if IntelliBond improves NDF digestibility in relation to an organic source in diets for dairy cows, what could happen to the pasture? Because if you can improve digestibility here, perhaps there is an extra energy available because of the volatile fatty acids, which could also affect the growth of this animal. So, and that the trial was set up. And the setup of the trial was very simple. Sorry, my finger was faster here. So in this case, what's really traditional to do in Brazil and commercially is during this dry season, producers provide to the animals what we call a protein energetic supplement, which the intake range from 3 to 5 grams per kilogram of body weight. So this supplement has about 25% crude protein and 65% TBN. In this case, the treatment was very simple. They use the supplement including zinc or copper sulfate or IntelliBond C, IntelliBond Z. And of course, they have a trial, a part of the trial was done with cannulated animals to see all the parameters in the rumen, but also another trial was done with more animals in paddocks to see the performance results. Right here, I'm gonna show the performance results to you. So after 90 days of supplementation during this trial, we could observe an extra 5 kilograms of gain in those animals that was receiving IntelliBond, replaced by, it was receiving IntelliBond and not the sulfates. So we can observe the benefit to use this type of supplement, yes. But of course, by using a better source, you can have even an extra improvement in body weight gain. I'm pretty sure this is a good information for any beef producer under grazing situation. And this is what I want to share with you. Perhaps you can see the improvement, you can see the gain of the fiber digestibility in milk, but also you can see growth. I'm trying to move my own. So now back to you, Pablo, please.
Okay, a few slides to finish left. And I think we finish with the take-home message slide. So it is not an experimental trial designed by any institution or university. It's just a commercial experience in a commercial farm after avoid the use of inorganic minerals. And for me, I bring this case because it was very impressive. Most of you know using feed additive in ruminants are not miracle or something wonderful, because there are a lot of things related to farm management, housing groups, and many things related to the farm conditions, apart from any feed additive in the GMR. But in this case, I can observe some interesting differences between no inorganic source and IntelliBond. Inorganic sources and IntelliBond. This is the big picture of the farm. It's one of the main customer farm in Spain for trout nutrition as a dairy consultant, because we do the consultancy also for some big farms in Spain. This is it is placed in close to Catalonia in Aragon. Today they are milking around 1,100 lactating cows. But at this time, at this moment, because this experience was observed in 2018, the farmer have milk around 800 lactating cows. It is a freestyle barn with many innovations on it, with wearables, neck sensors, softwares. His son is a veterinarian, so after the vets in the farm has changed a lot. The far production in numbers, they have different groups, so we fit different mixer wagons or different GMR, but in general they have on average 36 liters in you can see the difference between early lactating cows and late lactating cows. Fat content was in May, so the cows were milking under heat stress condition, was 33.7% of fat content. It is a nice number if you consider this condition in Spain at least. And protein content is very stable around the whole year, 3.2, 3.3. So the situation was the following. I have a first snapshot. May 1st, 2018, the standard ration was 20 kilogram maize silage, 22 11.5 kilogram of compound feed. It's very typical in Spain. We use a lot of concentrate. It is one of the reasons to have this fat content. 10 kilograms of grass silage with a very nice quality, and 5 kilograms alfalfa hay. Normally we use a bit of straw, barley straw, just to slow to avoid the high or speedy passage rate. And at that time, I used a farm mineral from Terra Nutrition with the 100% of inorganic trace minerals. So the next snapshot was May 20th in 2018. Farmer decided to open the new grass silage, apparently with a very nice quality. The silage has more protein than the previous one, but was a surprise. In the analysis appears many more ash, moisture, and ADF. I think grass silage has around 17-18% of ash content in the grass silage. I changed a bit the protein percentage in the compound feed just to balance the diet, because the protein content was higher due to the grass silage, but the rest of the ingredients kept exactly the same. And fat milk, we suffer a milk fat depression. Fat milk decreased around 0.25 points, and it was a problem because above 3.7 milk industry pay a good price, but below this amount, this percentage, farmer complained because it is the price, the milk price in Spain is very low, so these kind of things are crucial. So and since the use of the new silage, so and protein percentage, as I mentioned before, was very stable, and liters maybe going a bit down, but more or less the same. The next snapshot was in the 1st June. I decided to, because after 10 days, 12 days, a farmer called me, and he told me, Pablo, we need to change because I lost money. I decided to use a farm mineral without sulfate, without any inorganic minerals, and we use a farm mineral with the 100% of replacement in zinc and copper. Farmer agreed, and we tried with the new mineral from 1st June. You can see the spectacular change after the use of the new grass silage. During 10-15 days, milk fat was going down to 3.40. As you see, also the protein was very stable. But after use this premix without inorganic minerals, During a few days, nothing happened. But after 2 weeks, 15 days, the milk fat came back at again at 3.7, and we didn't make any change apart from the change in the minerals in the farm minerals formula. You can see ILA is the institution who collect the milk for the farmers in that area and provides the data, the milk data for the farmers. So we have all the data before the introduction of the new grass silage and after that. From this situation, farmers are using commonly and daily this new formula without inorganic minerals. For me, was really impressive. And at this moment, we were starting this new concept focus on digestibility in Spain. And it was a very successful experience because many of our customers and even potential customers decide to replace inorganic mineral for IntelliBonds in this case. Take-home message or overall key takeaways: not all trace mineral sources are the same. Stable mineral sources are made of stronger bonds, covalent bonds, as you saw before. More stable trace mineral sources, less solubility and reactivity in the rumen. Very important to maintain the microbial population, like all the flora who digest cellulose, as we saw before. NDF is an analytical measure of fiber in feeds, and NDF is made up of lignin, cellulose, and hemicellulose, and rumen microbes obviously digest NDF. So free copper and zinc, and it is very crucial for our presentation, reduce cellulose degradation by rumen microbes. In vitro, but regarding the trials and also some on-field experiment, we can see effectively free copper and zinc, even if they have in not a high amount in the composition, can reduce dramatically the fiber digestibility or the NDF digestibility. And organic trace mineral also decrease NDF digestibility. IntelliBond increase NDF digestibility compared to inorganic trace mineral because it seems like a control without minerals, without any minerals. More NDF digestibility can result in more energy available to the animal, and consequently, when it needs more milk and milk solid, like milk fat, and as alternative can also be a tool to support nutritionists to optimize diet. And at this moment, with a very high price in the raw ingredients, that is very interesting, has a feed additive inside the premix with the effect of unfeed additive. And I think that's all. Thank you very much, and please don't hesitate to shoot any question.
Hello, everyone.
Well, I am. Thank you, Pablo. Thank you, David, for the presentation. I am looking at my screen. We answered a few questions already, but we still have some time for a few extra ones. So if there are any questions, then feel free to pop them in the question panel on your GoToWebinar tool, and we will see them come in and we will address them. So I'll give it just.
I receive a question. I receive a question via WhatsApp.
Okay.
And not in the chat. So this from our colleague Pablo Gallo in Brazil. He's a good friend. So he asked about, he work a lot with a forage. He work in a seed company. And he asked about in Brazil using like a corn silage, but also snaplage and tropical forage. If the NDF digestibility would be the same, and what would be the effect on the pH? So what I can answer you, Paulo, is yes. Actually, by diets which contain more foraging content and diets that offering more chance to have the benefit to increase the digestibility of the NDF, you can see better results. That is what we observe in the trials. So I'm pretty sure if the diets in Brazil, you're going to have many benefits by using this trace mineral source, and which can give advantage to an extra gain of volatile fatty acid to get the to perhaps balance better and reduce also the inclusion of too much grains, or perhaps go to the opportunity to use maybe more byproducts in the diet. You can reduce costs, but also can make the diet be little bit more rumen healthier in terms of formulation. So in other words, I have no doubts this type of trace mineral fits very well, and it's been fitting very well because that's already been used in many farms in Brazil, which is very successful. And we know in Brazil, fat content is a problem due to the heat stress, but it can fit very well the example that Pablo does have, because Spain also had a lot of problems with heat stress. It's very warm during summer, but also the type of forage that we work in Brazil, the digestibility of the NDF is lower, so you can have the benefit as we could see with the beef animals trial.
Okay, thank you so much. So here's time for one more. This one is for Pablo. What is the main objective of straw in the diet?
That's a nice question. The main objective, okay, depends on the area, but and the meal processor. But we have many farmers who are waiting for a very nice production instead of meal solids or whatever, because it is not worth it to produce, for example, meal fat in some areas. So they prefer to produce milk liters. So when we have a very nice rice silage with not so high NDF content and fiber, we have a very nice alfalfa hay and 11.5 or 12 in some cases kilograms of concentrate. The speed of the passage rate is so fast. So we have some troubles to maintain a good level of meal fat, and we need to stop a little bit the passage rates with the straw. It is not the best option, because sometimes we have also some oat hay or barley hay to do that. But in some cases, it is almost mandatory to use straw as a tool to reduce the passage rate. Is the goal.
Great, thank you so much. Well, looking at time, I'm going to close the session. Thank you, David. Thank you, Pablo, again for the presentations you did and the nice stories. Thank you, audience, for the questions that you had. Having said that, wanted to point out to the July webinar that we have planned on palatability, and September, November, January, and March are also still in scope. So feel free to join those as well. We will announce them, and the registration links will be available a few weeks before. Thank you so much for joining. I hope this was worthwhile attending. And talk to you all. Oh, yes, Steffi.
One thing only, then just because I see some people ask about the presentation, there is the email. The next slide, there is an email, right?
Yeah, when people ask, send an email to the email they get to thank them for joining, then I will receive them and I will make sure that they get them. And the one that is asking it now, I already know, so I will make sure that I send them. No problem at all. So thank you all. Thank you for joining. I hope to see you next time. Stay safe and have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.